Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for joining us once again for our daily English news edition. As usual, I'm Daniel Cook, your host, Monday through Saturday at 6 p.m. The Bank of Albania has found that citizens are taking out loans from the banks for everyday consumption, but are not secure enough to invest in the purchase of homes. This fact is established in the bank's monetary policy report, which states the following. The expansion of the loan portfolio for individuals is supported by the consumer loans, which are growing at annual rates close to the 11.6% level in August. Meanwhile, the annual rate of mortgage lending stands at 2.1%. Although the banks have significantly eased the credit conditions for mortgage loans, the demand of individuals remains fragile and is mainly affected by the uncertainty of individuals. The economic slowdown has caused the citizens to significantly reduce their spending in anticipation of better days. On the other hand, the decline of consumption has weakened the demand for goods and services, further hampering the economic increase. The report continues. Private consumption continues to decline, reflecting the increased tendency of consumers to save money. The improvement of economic growth in the coming years would be supported by a reduction of accumulated savings in the private sector, by improving financial conditions in reflection of easier monetary policy, and by improving the confidence of economic agents, as well as increasing the demand in the export markets. The end of 2015 is expected to see an economic increase that, in the best case, will be 2.7%, which is still far from the level at which citizens would feel positive effects on their pocketbooks. Both local and foreign businesses have announced that they will appeal the amendments to the law on tax procedures to the Constitutional Court. The changes to the law strengthen the penalties against the business sector, increasing the fines tenfold for businesses caught in violation. The intention to appeal the law was made public in an activity that was organized by the Foundation for Economic Freedom, just a day before the new penalties enter into power. The head of the Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Nikolin Jaka, asked for a more lenient solution to the fight against informality, saying that these penalties will send businesses to bankruptcy and will increase corruption. The chairman of the American Chamber of Commerce, Mark Crawford, has also appealed for the business climate to be improved, and the head of the Manufacturing Association stated that the Albanian economy is in its most difficult days. The operation against informality was launched on September 1st and was initially welcomed by businesses, but business reps are now calling the government to soften the tough penalties that it has set. Starting from tomorrow, businesses will be held to the law under threat of the following penalties: a fine of 500,000 lek for not issuing a sales receipt, a fine of 500,000 lek for not declaring employees, a fine of 500,000 lek and a criminal lawsuit for not declaring the true salary of employees, a fine of 500,000 lek if businesses do not register their address, a fine of 10 million lek for trading items without documents. The Democratic Party chairman, Basha, has once again blamed the government for the economic crisis, saying that it has plunged the country into debt, crime, and corruption. During today's meeting of the Democratic Parliamentary Group, Mr. Basha called the citizens to protest. The spirit of civil disobedience is being spread all around the country, he said. No one can accept a government that lies and steals any longer. Mr. Basha commented on the progress report as well, saying that the government is responsible for the failure to open negotiations. He went on, the report states clearly that corruption is widespread and that organized crime remains a serious problem that needs to be dealt with. The negotiations will not be opened without the adoption of the decriminalization law, declared Mr. Basha. Students of several universities held a protest outside the Prime Minister's office for around 90 minutes today. The protest was against the reform in higher education, which they consider to be unconstitutional, and the violence against the group of students who threw eggs at the Prime Minister. The students marched from the University of Social Issues to the Prime Minister's office, where they called the government to withdraw from the law on higher education. The protest was overseen by a large force of police officers. One of the leaders of the group made the following demands. We call Prime Minister Edi Rama to withdraw from the law on higher education, otherwise we will boycott the universities until our demand is met. We are here to reject the reform in higher education and to denounce the violence against the students. The protest was conducted peacefully and was organized by a group called the Movement for University. The EC Progress Report for Albania praises the fact that the country has made some progress in freedom of expression compared to a year ago. The European Commission raised concerns about hostile statements against journalists, but also for the use of media for political and private interest. The report reads, "The overall environment is generally conducive to the exercise of freedom of expression, but better implementation of the legislation is needed." The EC points out that there have been cases in which politicians have made hostile statements against the journalists, saying that protection is needed even though physical assault against journalists may be rare. The report also mentions the fact that the procedure for appointing members of the AMA board was accompanied by political debate. The EC makes several recommendations for Albania, saying that the country should enhance the transparency of government advertising in the media, ensure that the existing legislation is implemented in a manner that ensures equality before the law, and strengthen the independence of the regulatory authority through the establishment of an RTSH steering committee and through the appointment of senior management. The Ministry of Interior has presented its new draft on public security and covered some important points of the draft, like the installment of security cameras in public places. According to Minister Tahiri, all footage captured by these cameras will be available to the law enforcement authorities for investigative purposes. He feels that this initiative will bring corruption in the justice system to an end, and he gave an answer to the rising concern about the violation of privacy. He said, "There are many buildings with security cameras during a criminal proceeding. Anytime the prosecution or the police needs the footage from these cameras, they can take it, as long as they respect the legal framework." According to the draft, the municipalities and administrative units will install security cameras in the streets, businesses, schools, buses, and taxis in order to guarantee security for the citizens. The Democratic Party has reacted, accusing the Interior Minister of being a threat to public security. The General Secretary, Arben Ristani, made the following statement: "The most accused minister in 2 decades, the protector of drug cultivation, the commander of drug traffickers, speaks today about public security. What kind of public security can a country have if it is filled with hashish from north to south? He is the most discredited minister of this government, which is plunged into crime," said Ristani. The 18th annual Tirana Book Fair was kicked off today, and the attendance has been high since the early hours. Because of economic challenges, this year's book fair includes fewer new books. The publishers say that their prices have not changed since last year, but some of the citizens have said that the prices are unaffordable for them. The Minister of Culture was present at the opening ceremony of the fair, and now in cooperation with Vodafone Albania, many of the books are available for smartphones. The fair will be open until November 15th. Thank you for joining us once again for our daily English edition. Have a great evening, and see you tomorrow.